Wrestling fans, promoters, wrestlers, and anyone who enjoys pro wrestling now have something new to be excited about. The Wrestling Fans International Association, the WFIA, is back. WFIA is an association that exists to promote, grow, and support professional wrestling throughout the world. Membership is free. Your membership includes a free digital bi-monthly publication of the Wrestling Fan News newsletter, association updates, voting privileges, and much more. Please go to thewfia.org, that's THEWFIA.org, and become a member today.
Welcome to the show, everybody. Mike Mittman, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Rick. Good to be with you.
Thank you for taking the time out of your day to sit here and talk about your involvement in the wrestling world.
Well, we probably could talk for about 6 months, but we don't have that much time, but a lot to talk about.
Yeah. I know you're heavily involved, but I want to know, were you a fan growing up, and how did you get into it?
I definitely was a fan growing up. I loved professional wrestling as a kid, and I got into it in the early days. I was into boxing, and I was an official in boxing and always into boxing. And through there, I met the legendary, and I mean legendary, ring announcer, the great Joe McHugh. Of course, was the ring announcer for Vince McMahon Sr. And Jr. For All-Star and Championship Wrestling. And through there, that's how I got in. I started going to the tapings, and from there, it was all history. I've been doing it ever since, a long time.
What year was that, roughly?
Well, about 1973.
Okay, so that's still pretty early on. So yeah, and you worked with obviously a lot of legends of the time of the day there.
It was incredible. I mean, it's like a who's who. I mean, I was friends with, of course, I was there from the beginning, day one, when Hulk Hogan made his grand debut. Matter of fact, you don't believe me? It's on YouTube. You'll see me with the Hulkster. I was there from day one of Hulk Hogan and through his heel days, and of course went away to do Rocky, then came back, as a baby. I was friends with Andre the Giant. Of course, Macho Man Randy Savage, Sergeant Slaughter, the Road Warriors, so many, legends, that I was at all the tapings, sat through hundreds and hundreds of hours over the years of interviews, so many great stories, and of course had the pleasure of the honor of traveling, with all the great legends. We were on the road, so I traveled with a lot of the legends, and I believe I told you the story with the Iron Sheik passing a few weeks ago.
Right.
It brought back memories in my mind of the Sheik. He was a good guy, and I was announcing a show for cable TV in Bermuda, and I think I told you the story where we all flew down, and it was with Rocky Johnson was there, and loaded with stars, and it was a Sunday, and the Sheik decided that he wanted to have some beer, but in Bermuda, all the bars are closed on a Sunday. You can't get beer. So he grabs me by the arm and said, "Come on, Mike, we're going to get some beer." I said, "Sheiky, it's closed Sunday. You can't do that." And so we went from bar to bar, pounding on the door, and I'm worried somebody's going to, start shooting at us. And but finally, he banged on one door of a bar room, and I guess the owners lived upstairs, and they came down, and they gave us a whole bunch of 6-packs to take back to the boys.
That had to be pretty comical, but in the long run, I guess, in the end, I mean, pretty scary probably.
Now it's funny. It wasn't funny at the time, with the Sheiky powder. But it was cool because, I'm walking through Bermuda, everybody's honking their horns as we're walking down these side roads and everything. So it was fun. And, of course, the Wild Samoans, Afa and Sika, were on the tour, longtime friends. And, of course, I did a lot of announcing for Afa and Sika. And that whole, I knew the Rock since he was a kid. Of course, his father, Rocky Johnson, and the whole family, Yokozuna, Rodney, Rikishi. I knew them all and worked with them all.
I remember him, Rikishi, when he was real young, and I watched him before he was Rikishi, obviously, but whether it be the NWA, World Class, and all that stuff. So, I've seen his transition over the years as his character. So,
and of course, my funny story with Yokozuna. I was doing a live television show on the people that invented cable television on the Service Electric Network.
Okay,
and I was at a desk. And we had a little sofa where the guests would sit. So Yoko's sitting on the sofa. And about 3 minutes before airtime, bam, the sofa went down to the ground. And there was no more sofa. So the producer had to scramble to go down into the storage room in the basement and try to find another seat or sofa. And they did. They found something, and that held up for the half hour.
That's incredible. That's incredible. So you started off there, if I remember correctly, as the timekeeper, but you wore many.
I did everything, and I started off as the timekeeper at the Bell for Vince and All Star and Championship Wrestling, and through that, I learned the business from the bottom up with the legendary, and I do mean legendary, Robert Morella, better known as Gorilla Monsoon. And I learned the business. I learned the timing of all the matches and how everything was put together, because Gorilla Gino was really the guy that ran the television. He was the head of that TV, and I learned everything from him, and it was a great education. And again, I was there from the ground up, and we had, in those days, we had 15 matches. There was 5 matches per hour, and we did 3 hours. And the problem was, by the third hour, a lot of the fans started going because it was just a lot to sit through.
Yep.
So it didn't look that great on television. So what we did was we came up with a non-televised dark match, which was a main event anywhere in the world. I mean, it was unbelievable. Main event anywhere in the world. And you got to see it for the incredible price of whatever the tickets were in those days, $6, $7,
something like that.
$8, $5, but you got to see this. So this way, the people stayed. So on the third hour, you saw a full crowd.
So that started back then. That wasn't always a thing. It was just literally squash matches basically for 3 hours until that concept came about. Until you guys decided to put the main event in, or you get what I'm saying? Yeah, because I remember going.
I mean, television was you had a purpose. It was to put people over, or create an angle. It would start an angle, or somebody would interfere in one match, and it would lead to something else.
Right.
And it was great stuff. I mean, it was really great stuff. And we had some very exciting matches on television. A lot of them were squash matches, but we had some great matches. But the non-televised dark match was, again, world-class main events anywhere.
Right. I remember going as a kid, and they were kind of they were like 3-4 hours. TV tapings, and then there was like kind of like I guess dark matches sporadically throughout, maybe in the opening, maybe in the one in the middle. Then of course the main event would be, I think one of the ones that I went to was like Savage and Andre, you know what I mean, New Haven. So that was like, that was a big match because I think Savage had just won the title for the first time. I don't know if you remember that. 1988. That was my first show that I ever attended in New Haven, Connecticut, and it was, to me, that's what made me obsessed.
What was funny back in those days was the cycle that it ran on. They were different stations around the country, and it's not like today where everything is satellite. They were actually hand delivered. Dennis Dunn was the boss of the TV, and they were hand delivered to Philadelphia, Jersey, New York, wherever. And each station was on a different cycle. The big station in New York may be, the following week. Other smaller stations may be 3 weeks later. So the funny thing about that, you may have whomever, the Strongbows, maybe the tag team champions, and they may have lost their title on television, but that didn't mean anything until it hit TV. It didn't exist. So they would go and continue to wrestle as champions in the area of the match until television. Then they were no longer champions.
I know, that's kind of amazing. The pre-internet date, like how stuff like that would happen for weeks at a time. They would still walk around with the belts, or you couldn't Google and find out. Or they would experiment with certain things on like house shows or dark matches and stuff like that. Maybe have somebody come out with a belt or what have you.
But the names, I could go through thousands of names, the legendary names, that we had from, Ivan Koloff, the Russian Bear, and just on and on and on. And of course, a gentleman that I became very good friends with, and then later on got a chance to co-announce with on International Wrestling, the legendary Bruno Sammartino.
I was going to, I want to ask you about that, forming International Wrestling, and of course, your friendship with Bruno Sammartino. That's here in my notes to ask you. So how did that whole thing come about, the International Wrestling, and and then you guys, eventually he left and went back to WWF, correct?
Correct. And so did I. and so did I. Vince was a great guy. Vince Vince Jr. was running things, but we experimented. Actually, that was the brainchild of Dominic DiNucci, Bruno's longtime friend, and he wanted to create his own federation. So he came up with this idea, and he got me, said, Mike, I'd love to have you announce. And he says, I got Bruno. And it was incredible. I mean, just to be with, and I've known Bruno, through WWWF, then WWF. So we were good friends, but to get to announce with Bruno was, on a whole different thing. It was a lot of fun. And I remember going to New York to line up stations, and going to, Connecticut, Jersey, different places with Bruno, because the stations that were thinking about carrying us said, fine, but you come up. We want to talk to Bruno Sammartino. And one memory that will always be in my mind, I'll never forget, we went to a station in New York, and then Bruno said, come on, we're going to get something to eat. So we walked into a restaurant in Little Italy, and you thought the heavens opened up, and it was incredible. I mean, we couldn't spend any money if we had $8 million on the table. They wouldn't take anything from us. They kept bringing out wine and food, and everybody loved Bruno Sammartino.
The guy was, even back then, the guy was like the biggest thing on earth. He was, he was an absolute legend, and to this day, his legacy just literally lives on. He's remembered very well.
He was a tough guy, tough guy, legitimately strong. Nobody would mess with Bruno. I don't care what name you want to throw at me. If Bruno was upset, nobody would mess with him. And of course, we were lucky because also we had Larry Zbyszko. So we were going to continue that series of matches. And of course, Bruno Zbyszko feud was, one of the all-time biggest feuds in professional wrestling.
Yeah. Was that Shea Stadium? Was that where that was?
Excuse me?
Where did the blow off happen? Was that Shea Stadium? Am I mistaken?
Well, when we had him, we actually never got to do that match, okay? Because we were planning it and things happened, but the setup to everything happened right here in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Right. That was the famous match where things happened, and I'll never forget that night. More blood than you could ever imagine, and there's a story behind that. As you know, in the day, they used razor blades. Yes. Okay, when they wanted to juice, and some wrestlers were really good at it, but Bruno never did it before. Right. So the time came with the chair shot and everything else, and Bruno did it, but he really, again, wasn't good at it because he never did it before. And, like if you're shaving and you cut yourself, it bleeds like crazy, just a little nick. Well, Bruno actually cut, and he lost so much blood. I mean, it looked like gallons on that ring. And I remember afterwards they stopped, after the match, they had to stop the TV taping, and they had 3 janitors in there with these big mops, broom, and it took them a half hour to clean up all the blood. And they wanted to take Bruno to the hospital because he lost more blood than you should ever lose. But Bruno was the toughest guy on the planet, and no, I'm not going to the hospital. Yeah, but he looked white. I mean, he looked pale. Wow. I'll never. But again, as far as television goes, wow, that was must-see TV, as they say. That made it. Yeah, and now a lot of those episodes leading up to the feud are on the Peacock network. They've been uploading slowly but surely in the last year groups of championship wrestling. Everything's coming back. Yeah, I'm a nostalgia nut, so it's every time something gets uploaded, there I am Friday night or whatever, watching everything that as it's coming out, because I love the history of professional wrestling and learning about some of the great stuff. As you know, Mario Savoldi and the Savoldi Library, one of the next to Vince and the WWE, one of the largest libraries in the world. And he's bringing back a lot of these classic matches on the Classic Wrestling Network. And I'm revoicing, re-announcing a lot of those matches. So it's great that people can see some great stuff. Yeah. And, you did announcing for Mario and his international championship wrestling, I think from 85 to 86, I believe it was. Yeah, but it was longer than that because we had other names. I worked with Mario all over the country. Oh, okay. International World Class Championship Wrestling, IWCCW. Yep, I remember that different names, but I worked for Mario long time. Yeah. What was it like working with him and his unique talent? Because he always brought in, guys that might have left WWF or, the NWA or whatever. And you look at those videos and stuff, and ever since those things are being uploaded, I was a huge ICW fan, Savoldis ICW fan growing up in
even into the era of IWCCW, and some of that stuff is just classic and so hard to come by. But now that he's uploading this network, or the everything to his network, it's amazing that all this stuff is being uncovered. Not to mention all the other footage he owns by other companies. That's just amazing.
I just voiced the match with Andre the Giant against Hulk Hogan from Japan. It was an incredible match. Another one with the Road Warriors against Ric Flair. I mean, it was incredible. And I remember announcing for Mario Savoldi in a studio in Phoenix, Arizona. It was the World Entertainment Network. Went into this huge studio and had all these matches on screen, and then I would revoice them. And one of my co-announcers was none other than superstar Billy Graham, who lived there in Arizona. And then we brought in Captain Lou Albano, and the captain did a cooking segment, Cooking with Lou Albano.
Right.
And that was funny. So that was some really, really great shows with some unbelievable matches. And the cool thing is now with Mario's Classic Wrestling Network and a lot of these networks, you get to see all this again. And for the wrestling fans that really wanted the huge names, it's all out there.
Yeah. I mean, not only do you get to see, guys like Jumpin' Joe Savoldis, but you get to see Andre the Giant. You get to see Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage. Gene Okerlund is up there now. I mean, Tony Atlas. Yeah. So let's see. Let's see where I was going. What about, you just mentioned Captain Lou Albano. Tell me about working with him. Yeah, you worked with him through the 70s in WWWF and of course.
Long time. Lou was a good guy. Miss Lou.
Yeah.
He was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful person. And it was just a lot of fun. And I worked with Lou and Freddie Blassie and Ernie Roth, the Grand Wizard.
Yeah.
We used to kid around. I'm sure you remember the Grand Wizard.
Absolutely.
And before the tapings, he would let me try on different turbans that he had. He said, Mike, this would look good with you. But I remember we were doing a television taping up in the Catskills in New York. And we had every superstar on that show. And we had a private dining room where the boys would eat. And we sat down to eat, and I remember they brought this huge, and I mean huge, bowl of salad. And obviously you could see that salad would feed like 10 people. But Lou grabbed the salad and started eating right from the salad bowl. He thought that was for him because the guy put it in front of him. Then he's looking around. I said, "Oh, I'm sorry. Do you guys want some?" And they said, "That's okay, Lou. We'll get another bowl." But that was just one of the many funny stories of Captain Lou. A real funny guy.
You also brought up Classy Freddie Blassie, probably one of the most legendary managers in professional wrestling. Had an incredible run in California. Of course, in New York, managed Hulk Hogan in his earliest days and a whole amazing roster of talent. What do you remember of working with Freddie?
A good guy, really good guy. He was classy. He spent big money on big things, and he was just a lot of fun to be around. A quick story about Freddie Blassie. We were doing a show, of course, in Hamburg, and his wife had a what do you call it, tonsillectomy. Something happened, and she had to have it done right away.
Yep.
So we took her to the hospital in the Hamburg area. And as you know, right afterwards, she was there for a few days. You're supposed to eat like Jell-O or something, ice cream they would give you. Yeah. But the nurse instead gave her toast. And all kinds of she hated Freddie Blassie. So all of a sudden the doctor came in, "What are you doing?" "I don't like him. I watch him on television." And so, all kinds of stuff. But Freddie was a good good guy.
That's the whole, back then people believed what you saw on television. It was kind of an amazing thing how
Oh yeah,
the fans of the day reacted way different than they do today, because there wasn't as much knowledge out there about the inside workings of professional wrestling. So if people hated you, they legitimately hated you. It wasn't just part of the TV show. So that Freddie was one of the most vicious and hated men in professional wrestling at one point.
he could build heat. He could get it done. Yeah.
What about working with you? You've worked with Davey O'Hannon quite a bit.
I did.
Yes.
A real good guy.
Yeah.
I got to see Davey 2 summers ago. We had a Hamburg Fieldhouse reunion. Nice. And I got to see Davey. It was so great to see him. And unfortunately, it was the last time I got to see Dominic DeNucci because Dominic passed away shortly thereafter. Bob Orton, I got to see there. Larry Zbyszko was there. It was great to see a lot of the guys that we worked at Hamburg. Every 3 weeks it was televised all over the world.
Now, one of the guys, and this might be, I don't know if it's a little odd or not, but early on he was there for in the All-Star Wrestling era. Went on to kind of greater fame and working in Florida and then the NWA. Kevin Sullivan. Do you remember working with Kevin at all?
I do. Yeah. Yes.
Any good memories of him at that young period of his career?
Not a lot. No. Just he was nice. A good guy, tough guy. Yeah.
But, I actually didn't.
I wasn't as close to Kevin as the because just the way it turned out.
Yeah, he ended up having a pretty good run with the Savoldis as well. Him and Mark Lewin came in at one point.
Yeah.
Do you remember Mark Lewin at all?
Good guy.
With him? Yeah. Did you work with Mark Lewin at all?
No, I did not.
No, outside of that. Okay. Of course, the unpredictable Johnny Rodz. What about this guy? Is an absolute legend and probably one of the most notorious trainers in the history of professional wrestling.
I was going to say, great trainer. Yeah, good guy. Johnny was a really good guy. I worked with Johnny the early days of WWWF.
Yeah, and he's still pushing out students. I've had a couple of his students recently on the show in the last couple of years, and he's still out there doing his thing, it seems.
Yeah, Johnny's a wonderful person. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you another one of the most notorious characters in professional wrestling in the WWWF era. Any memories of Baron Mikhail Cicluna?
Oh yeah. Mike Cicluna, a great guy. A really, really good guy. He and Dominic were very close.
Right.
Mike Cicluna and Dominic were good friends, and I got to meet him. Along with Killer Kowalski, another tough guy that I had the chance to work with. You were a rough guy. Yeah.
I just attended New England Fan Fest yesterday in Rhode Island, and going through some of the historic pictures that I found a bunch of pictures like guys like Buddy Rogers and Bruno and Killer Kowalski that I purchased for my collection, my personal collection. I got to tell you, man, I was kind of in awe going through all this like classic stuff as I was trying to, not spend too much money. It was just crazy. There's so much great stuff out there, and it's like some of it's so rare, but Killer Kowalski
another good guy that I had the chance to work with and was good friends with Rowdy Roddy Piper, a real good guy.
He was a really nice guy. I've met him several times actually, and throughout the years, I think. Any good stories about Piper while working with him?
Yeah, I have a real good story about Piper.
Yeah.
He was a wonderful guy, very friendly. Every time he would see me, "Hi, Mike, how are you?" But the one night I was back coming out of the dressing room, and he was just ready to go into the arena, was walking down, almost through the curtain for his match. And I said, "Hey, Roddy, how are you?" Didn't answer me. So I thought he didn't hear me. I said, "Hey, Roddy, how are you?" Didn't answer me. Then I watched what he was doing. He was staring at the wall. He was like 2 inches away from the wall, and he was just fixated on that wall. He was staring at that wall. Then I realized what he was doing. Excuse me. That was his way of getting himself in the mood to be. And then he turned around to walk through the curtain. His eyes were like 8 times the size they normally would be. And that's what he did. Somehow he got himself fixated and psyched himself up and that's how he did it.
Wow.
I learned that. Yeah. He didn't even know I was there. You could talk to him. He was not there.
Yeah. Wow. That's
but
incredible.
A good guy.
Yeah. Anything about working with Dr. D. David Schultz? Besides, were you there for the John Stossel incident?
I was not there.
You're not there. Okay.
No, I was not there. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but and again, if you want to talk wrestling, I'm one of the few people that have done everything in the business. I mean, everything other than set up the ring. But I used to stand there with the guys and watch everything. I started as timekeeper at the bell, of course, announced for, 40 years. I'm still doing that. Also, I had refereed many, many matches. I don't know if you're aware of that. And
I didn't. No.
Yeah, matter of fact, one of the big ones, and Vince came to me and asked me that one night, and I said, okay. I refereed. It was Saturday night's main event, if you remember that.
Yes, sir.
Series.
Yep.
And one of the biggest matches, it was a tag team match. Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant against King Kong Bundy and Big John Studd. It's on YouTube. You can see that now on YouTube. I mean, that's a lot of weight in that ring. I mean,
Absolutely.
that's the biggest guys in the world were in that ring. And the gimmick was that Andre was going to be choking Bundy. Mm-hmm. And I was going to come in and tap him and break it up. He was going to reach back, hit me, put me out. And another referee, my friend Joey Morella, Gino's son, Gorilla Monsoon's son, would come in and replace me. So time came, I hit him on the back. And I was pretty quick in those days. I was very fast because I had done some boxing, and I was fast. And I thought, I'm not taking Andre did know his own strength. I mean, we used to kid around before shows. A lot of people you may know palm basketballs, right?
Yes. Andre
could palm a basketball, close his fingers, go like that, and hide the basketball. You wouldn't see it.
Wow.
So I figured when I tap and I see the hand coming back, I'm moving. I'm getting out of there. He won't touch me. Well, I should have known, but I forgot the most incredible reach of any person ever. So I tapped, I moved, but he could reach you on the other side of the ring. That's how long his reach was. So he came up, he caught me. I went, and again, you'll see that on YouTube. I went like 5 feet up in the air and down and out. That was legit. Down and out. I woke up 30 seconds later, 40 seconds. My chin was ripped open.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. He nailed me. Andre does not know, never did know his own strength. That's why, you didn't mess with Andre, because wrestlers were afraid of Andre because he could kill you. Not meaning to, but he didn't know how strong he was. We used to pick up cars just for kidding around in Allentown and Hamburg in between matches, just to, something to do.
Right.
So if you watch the tape, Andre's looking over because he was worried. He thought he killed me. Then they took me back in the dressing room. I remember Vince McMahon came into the dressing room. Mike, are you okay? Yeah, Vince, I'm fine. You're going to the hospital? No, I'm not. Yeah, you're going to the hospital right now. And it'll say, no, Vince, I'm fine, honest. I'll be okay. And the doctor did what he did there, but I wasn't going to the hospital. And he says, Mike, he said, it looked incredible. It was real. It was all legit. It was real. It was a heck of a match. And you had like 25 million people watching that night all over the world, on
right.
NBC. Yeah.
I'm going to have to go back and watch that. I know it's on Peacock. The whole series is up there. So I want to go back and watch it. I'm going to do that today, actually, when we get out of here. What was the transition like from, you worked there during the 70s during Vince Sr. and now you're working for Vince Jr. basically. So what was Vince Sr. like first?
Vince Sr.?
Yes, sir.
I thought he was the classiest guy ever. I mean, I used to look at him and he had like $2,000 suits. And he always had a suit on. It could be 98 degrees. And he had a suit and a tie on. He was like right out of GQ magazine.
Right.
Like, wow. I mean, he was like right out of the magazines. I mean, and I say, wow, Mr. McMahon, that suit is beautiful. But what a gentleman. What a gentleman. No matter who he was around, when I'd go walking into the tapings, into the matches, he'd come over, hi, Mike, how are you, and shake my hand. I mean, he didn't need to do that. I mean, he was with, other promoters or this or that, and he'd come over and say hi to me. I mean, a real gentleman.
Nice. And of course, Vince brought it was 1982. He bought the company from his father.
Right.
1982. And then he started to expand it nationally, doing cable deals and all that other such things. And what did you think of that era? And then they, started rushing in the rock and wrestling era, the cartoonish era.
Great.
So,
he
cleaned it up. Yeah.
Vince Jr., Vinny, a genius, a real genius. And I remember going into an arena and Lou Albano was there. So I walked over to say hi to Lou, and Cyndi Lauper was there. So I said, hey, Lou. He said, hey, Mike. And I said, hi, Cyndi. She goes, I know who you are. So I watch television. And so she was great, It was great.
In that era, there was, and that was in 1984, 1985. There was just an amazing roster of talent. He was, a lot of cherry picking a lot of the territories, You guys had guys like, Jesse Ventura, Adrian Adonis coming in. I'm trying to remember everybody. Sorry, off the top of my head. And it was just an awesome. Yeah, it was loaded. I mean, the British Bulldogs came in, and Brett came in very young, and eventually kind of transitioned his character over a couple of years into what he became, the Hitman. How did you like that era? Like, was it? It was kind of very busy. It was very loud.
It was great. We had wrestlers. I mean, Bret Hart could wrestle.
He was probably one of the best. Yeah.
He could wrestle. I mean, it was, we were selling out everywhere. It was great.
He took it from the smoky arenas to like the brightening it up, not so much darker arenas. And
of course, a lot of the people that I work with, their kids are in it now. It's continued.
Yeah. And you still watch today, professional wrestling. I mean, you're still involved somewhat, right, with the Savoldis.
I certainly am working for my friend, Mr. Mario Savoldi. And I'm doing all these, as I had mentioned a little earlier, re-announcing, revoicing a lot of the classic wrestling matches. I mean, I just did one with the Road Warriors, and I mean, it's great. And this is what I love, the classic stuff. Not that today isn't good, But and again, as far as the Roman Reigns and all that. I worked with his parents. I know when he was a kid.
Yeah.
I knew all the parents, all the small. So I love the classic stuff. So yeah, I'm still involved today, and I love doing it.
So you eventually ended up with a radio career, correct?
Well, yeah, I do television and radio.
Okay.
I work on a cable network, the inventors of cable television in the U.S., called the SE Network, Service Electric Network. And I do a weekly show with the former heavyweight champion of the world, the Easton Assassin, Larry Holmes. I do that. And I do Motown, soul, and rock and roll on iHeartRadio.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Was that
I only work 6 days a week.
Only. So you're still pretty busy. So you're still a very busy man.
Sometimes I'll do 7.
Yeah, I fully understand working like crazy, and then pertaining this podcast as well as it's a very busy life, professional wrestling and media as a whole. Yeah.
Well, I can go on for about 60 hours with unbelievable stories. You know? And I was there, and again. The fans always thought they saw some great matches, but I sometimes saw better ones in the dressing room.
Do you want to share any stories about that? Like
sometimes things spill over, and I remember the one time Don Morocco came. It was in Allentown. Came in after a match, and. The Japanese wrestler, Mr. Fuji had him, and I'm trying to think his name. My mind just drew a blank.
What year was it?
Mr. Saito.
Mr. Saito. That's what I was going to say. Yeah,
was there, and I guess Mr. Saito had his bag too far. The dressing room was narrow,
right,
and he had his bag too far in the middle of the aisle, so Morocco kicked it. And Saito didn't like that. So he stood up. And Morocco was a big guy.
Yes,
and he said, "What are you going to do about it?" Well, Saito didn't talk. I never heard him say 3 words, actually. He didn't talk. But he legitimately was like a 5th, 6th degree black belt.
Right.
He legitimately was unbelievable. So all of a sudden, wham! Again, I never heard him say a word, ever. He didn't talk. Bam! He chopped, and Morocco goes flying into the wall. Then Morocco comes back off the wall, bam! Hits Saito, and oh my goodness, they were going at it. Seemed like an hour, but it was probably only like 20 seconds.
Right.
And then finally, word got out front. And then Vince Jr. came in and said, "That's it. It's over now." Or you both had it, and it stopped. But that was a brutal fight. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that sometimes a lot of things spilled over and
the fans were watching one match that was in the arena, and that was good. Not as good as what I was seeing.
A lot of times things did spill over. Obviously there would be heat between wrestlers, and one of the most notorious stories that is always told is the behind the scenes feud between the Rougeaus and the British Bulldogs.
Oh yeah,
and
the Bulldogs,
they like to prank people.
Oh my, they did. Some were funny, some were not funny. You got to understand the guys had a lot of time on their hands between shows. The match and until the next day, so they were thinking of ways to do it.
Yeah,
I'll never forget one of the matches I went with. Speaking about Lou Albano, we went to a McDonald's, and he had 8 Big Macs. He ordered 8, and he ate them all right there in the car.
What? That's a lot of food.
And he finished off a case of beer that was in the trunk. He washed it down. 8 Big Macs and a case of beer.
That's amazing. There was a lot of different things.
By the way, you ask about Andre the Giant. There's a lot of stories going on YouTube. What could Andre drink, and legendary, and I don't need stories. I saw it. Matter of fact, one of the things I used to do, because it was hard for Andre, excuse me, to travel, as you know.
Yeah.
When we would go to Hamburg, we'd be there, and he'd ask me, he'd give me money. So would you run down to the liquor store? It was on the main street in Hamburg, about 6 blocks from this. And I'd pick him up. His favorite, besides wine, was Crown Royal. The blue, purple sack.
Yep.
I'd get him 2 bottles of Crown Royal. And as soon as I'd give it to him, he'd pop it, and like you would take a shot, full bottle of Crown Royal right there before the match.
That's incredible.
Full bottle, and then after the show, he'd drink the second bottle. But I saw him. He chugged the whole bottle, and he did it every 3 weeks when we were there. So I know what he could drink. I saw him in the dressing room before a match. We were talking. He always carried it in his gym bag. 2 huge bottles of wine, 1, 2, right together. So when you talk about his legendary drinking, I don't need to guess or hear stories. I saw it.
Yeah.
Nobody could in the world, the history of the world, could handle it like he did. But then again, when you figure in the body mass, the size,
right?
No wonder.
Do you have any memories of working with Hogan at that time period? And his rise to fame?
Yeah, a lot of great memories working with Hogan. Matter of fact, I don't know, about 7 or 8 years ago, some friends of mine, Knobs and Sags, the Nasty
Boys, yes, sir,
put together a Hulk Hogan and Friends tour, and they came here where we taped Ag Hall. So they asked me to announce it, to MC it, and I did. And I introduced Hogan into the ring again, right here where he started. At Ag Hall, the very first day that he started was here, and so it's always great working with Hulk Hogan.
Yeah. I mean, the guy has assisted in the rise of professional wrestling and the popularity with Vince McMahon. That's a way he was that central piece, I guess. That they
he
pushed.
was it.
Yeah,
without
exactly.
Hulk, without the Hulkster. It may not hit that other level.
Yeah, his charisma, he was a star.
And I remember the first day when Mr. McMahon Sr. brought him in.
Yeah.
They were talking, and you could tell that they wanted to do something with him. But it wasn't all that great the first day. He had a robe on that was way too big, and I remember he was making his way up the ring steps. He tripped over the road, over his robe. So it wasn't all big, but what made the Hulkster was the movie when he came back after playing Thunderlips and Rocky. That helped.
That movie seemed to boost him up like a ton as far as his popularity goes, and Stallone like really helped him with in that manner, like that boosted his popularity drastically, and that's when he came in and it was like off to the races with the
It
WWF.
was just what the doctor ordered. That movie was a hit, and that when he came back, it was a whole nother level. Yeah.
Right. And what about anything with the Macho Man Randy Savage? Of course, he was one of the most notorious characters in the WWF at the time. Was very famous.
I got along great with Randy. I mean, he was a good guy. Yeah. Always enjoyed being with him. He was on that Halloween episode that we did on Saturday night's main event. He was part of that, and Miss Elizabeth, and I knew her as well. It's just funny, but people talk legends. Well, I got to be with the legends every single day for many, many, many years. Still am.
Yeah, that's amazing. It really is. So anything else you would like to share with us? regarding the WWF and your time there before we get out of here?
No, it was, always great. They were, I told you my thoughts about Vince McMahon Sr., classy guy, a real gentleman. And as far as Vince, we go back to the early days. And he's a wonderful person and smart. He did what very few people in the world could have done and still can. You got to have vision. You got to have to be able to put everything together. And
he's still doing it today.
Pardon me?
He's still doing it
today.
Still
doing it today. I mean, what he has is legendary and a really great guy.
He's become one of the most recognizable brands in the world,
with good reason.
Yeah.
With good reason. And the old saying, put your money where your mouth is. Well, he did that, because I remember going back to day one of WrestleMania. He was worried. He put everything on the line like very few people would do. I mean, every penny that he had was invested in, and everything he owned was signed to go into WrestleMania 1. Had it bombed,
he might not be here today having this conversation.
If he still owned his car. Right. So how many people would have the guts to do what he did? But he did. He took a chance, and obviously it was a huge success. And that's the kind of guy you want, that's willing to – he's got a vision, and he's willing to put everything involved with that.
He became the largest wrestling promoter in the world for decades. Yeah. He might have had some competition and went down a tiny bit, but he always rose up and killed that competition. That
he knew how to beat competition. He loved competition.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes him better is competition. That's when he's at his peak. So anytime there's a WCW that's trying to, or an AEW that's trying to, beat him, he will go full blast, and
you'll never live to beat him. If you dreamed about beating him, you'd apologize.
Absolutely. Mike, I want to thank you for coming in here today and spending the hour with me.
We'll do it again.
Absolutely. I would love to, and I'd love to get some more stories out of you too. So that'll be.
I only have 50 years of stories, so we have plenty more.
You think about writing a book?
People had talked about it. Yes.
Yeah.
People had talked about with me about maybe putting a book together. And
there you go. You got
I had time to sit down with somebody. Maybe, I would do that.
That's awesome. It's awesome. I want to thank you. And how can people get in touch with you if they're looking for you on social media anywhere? Yeah,
I'm on my Facebook. Yes. Okay. Yeah, Mike Mittman. There it is. I'm on Facebook. Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
You go there and find them, and everybody. I want to thank you, Mike, for coming in, and we'll talk to you very soon.
Yeah, you want to say hi on Facebook? Love to hear from you. Okay, thank you very much, and a pleasure doing PWZ.
It's professional wrestling's greatest, largest, privately owned wrestling library. All the classic hits, flips, slams, and pins of yesteryear are on one place. It's Ultimate Classic Wrestling. Check out the Nature Boy Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, Mr. USA Tony Atlas, Tito Santana, Rick Martel, a who's who of professional wrestling's greatest spotlight stars ever to grace the squared circle, all in one place. Grab the best seat in the house for memories and mayhem on Ultimate Classic Wrestling.